Concerned about New York State's new background checks for ammunition purchases, Assemblyman Scott Gray has penned a letter to Governor Kathy Hochul. As of last Wednesday, New Yorkers are required to undergo a background check and pay a $2.50 fee for all ammunition purchases, part of the Concealed Carry Improvement Act. In his letter, Gray mentions issues such as delays in processing background checks, lack of communication for the gun dealers, and suggests using a retention system so buyers don't have to go through a background check every time they buy ammo.
It really is redundant because most of the people have already gone through background checks for weapons. So this is really unnecessary, to say the least.
The letter was also sent to the acting superintendent of the New York State Police, and it is signed by other Assembly members.